the New Britain Board of Education, providing students with a high-quality education.
So let me go ahead and call the meeting to order, and ask that we start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Dawson, you want to lead us?
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And if you could call the roll. Yep. Yep.
Ms. Gail Sanders Conley.
Here.
Mr. Merrill Gay.
Here.
Mr. Joseph Listro.
Here.
Mr. Anthony Kane with a C.
Yo.
Ms. Monica Dawkins.
Here.
Mr. Anthony Kane with a K.
Here.
Mr. Matthew Marino. Ms. Annie Parker.
Here.
Ms. Diana Reyes.
Here.
Ms. Tina Santana.
Here.
Mr. Marino is excused.
Thank you.
All right, and let's take a moment of meditation and keep in mind all those people who are dealing with disasters in Florida with the hurricane.
And Puerto Rico that still don't have
And
power.
Puerto Rico that still don't have power. Okay, and I have five people on the public participation list, starting with Bill Shortell. And if you could just say your name and your address for the record, that would be great. And it's, 3 minutes.
Bill Shortell, 947 West Main Street in New Britain. So here we are again, and it's a opportune time for this discussion about Indigenous Peoples Day, because 500 some odd years ago, Columbus's ships were on the sea right now, heading to what became the West Indies. And if you looked into his journals, you saw that it was written in Spanish, and his personal letters were written in Spanish. And there was one other language in the journals, and that was Hebrew. And he knew Hebrew, he wrote Hebrew, and in the journals he took note of the high holidays, which we're in right now. His family had been in Italy for one generation. He was a Spanish Jew. And, but fast forward into the 1880s, and there was millions of Italian people coming into the United States, looking for somebody to stand up for them, and they chose Columbus, a man of both hemispheres. And there have been many famous, useful, important Italian people here in New Britain, so it's fitting that we do honor them. And I'll just name a couple. Nick Tomasetti. Anybody here know Nick Tomasetti? Nick Tomasetti, probably the greatest labor leader ever in New Britain. He was the head of the United Electrical Workers. He was my mentor when I was a young man. He was the most peaceful, most knowledgeable person I ever knew in my life at that time. He also had a very hot temper, which gave him a heart problem and died young. And then how about Carlo Carlosi? He's a giant of our times right now. How about Don DeFranco? Maybe more political wisdom in one finger than the rest of us have in our whole bodies. There's a lot of Italians to be honored in this city, but times have changed. Right now, the city is slowly filling up with people with indigenous blood. They were here before us, they're coming back. And a decision was made a long time ago to honor them, and that times have changed. The Italians don't need that anymore. They don't need that special day. The indigenous people are the ones who are suffering right now, and they do need it. I think we keep things the way they are. It's a shame that we have to talk about this over and over, but it's understandable, and I think that the will of the people will prevail on this. Thank you.
Thank you. The next person on the list is Joey Cantanzaro.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me. My name is Joey Catanzaro. I'm the president of the Italian American Alliance of over 7,000 members. I'm also a town councilman in the town of Plainville. I saw this on your agenda today, and I decided, I think it's really important for me to come and speak today. I know there are so many New Britain Italians that are part of my organization, so I figured I'd have to do them justice and speak for them. Columbus is such a huge part of Italian American heritage, and I was really happy to see that Mr. Kane had brought it to the attention of the board, of possibly reinstating, possibly one of the most important days Italian Americans see in the year. That's Columbus Day. It's super important to me. It made me feel so excited to see, and I hope that we will really move forward with this, and then we could have Columbus Day back. It would bring so much pride to so many Italians in this city who see themselves as almost being in a way put down because their day is gone. In my opinion, doing this would be amazing, and actually, as a matter of fact, I am holding a Columbus Day celebration on October 10th, Columbus Day, and I hope to see all of you there at the Columbus statue. I would like to see all of you there. That would mean the world to me. Thank you so much.
Thank you. The next speaker is Alicia Strong.
Hello, Alicia Strong, 2017 Corbin Ave. Can you hear me? Good. I'm here today to express my support for Indigenous Peoples Day and very, very strongly oppose changing that back to Columbus Day or to any other day. For me, it really has to do with my own background. I'm an Afro-Puerto Rican girl who grew up right here in the city of New Britain, but I didn't know about the true history of my people, my indigenous background, until I went to college. And that's when I found out what Columbus did to the indigenous people of Puerto Rico. And sitting in a city where probably almost 50% of the population is of Puerto Rican descent, and probably higher in the school district, it just seems unfathomable that we would even think to go back and bring up something that we've already took the right steps towards. So again, I'm just here to tell the board to oppose any types of resolutions that would change Indigenous Peoples Day. I think this is a great step, and it's opened up great conversations, and I think we need to continue to have those. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person is Esther Santana.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Esther Santana, and I live at 4 Cornelius Way, New Britain, Connecticut. I'm going to read something because I have a head injury, so I'll forget things. So many cities have stopped celebrating Columbus Day, and instead, of course, they went and started celebrating Indigenous Peoples Day. Celebrating Columbus Day erases the history of the indigenous people who lived in America long before the Europeans arrived. It also ignores the devastating effects of colonization and Columbus' brutality towards indigenous people. The tragic murder of millions of indigenous people and forced assimilation in the name of European conquest must be recognized, understood, and acknowledged. We must also accept the ongoing decolonial struggles that indigenous people face today. The history behind the celebration of Indigenous Day was not created to disrespect or harm any other community, especially Italians, if I have Italian families. Instead, it was established to bring awareness to the original people of the United States, indigenous people is a day to celebrate the cultures and traditions of our people worldwide. It also is a day to recognize that Indigenous people contributes to the world and acknowledge their rights and authorities, their contributions I meant. There are many ways that Indigenous Peoples Day can be used to help build bridges between our people and other people. It can promote understanding and awareness of Indigenous peoples' cultures and histories. It can also be used to encourage dialogue and exchange between Indigenous peoples and others. Additionally, it can help build relationships of trust and respect. Ultimately, Indigenous People Day can help to create a more inclusive and a just society for everyone. Finally, it can be used as an opportunity for people to stand in unity with Indigenous people, my people. The struggles for land, self-determination, and culture preservation. By celebrating all aspects of Indigenous people, cultures, including their food, language, their art, their music, their stories, their ceremonies, and more, we can start to create a more welcoming and inclusive society. Thank you all.
Thank you. And next speaker is Desiree Costa.
Good evening, everyone. I'm here on two things tonight. Columbus, it's a pretty popular subject tonight. But also, I participated in the garden crawl this weekend. And Roots does this incredible work for
Hang on just a second.
You're on.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead. Get rid of the echo.
You didn't want to hear me twice? The garden crawl was an awesome experience. We had a great luncheon. We learned a lot about the greenhouses, how our students and our schools are participating in this program, what they're learning, what they're producing, that they get to be part of a much bigger community of farmers and our farmers markets and restaurants who improve their menus. It's just really an extraordinary experience. I was so happy to be there. I am going to bring a crowd next year. This program is doing wonderful things for our city, feeding the most food vulnerable. Like, this is just a beautiful, beautiful program. Mr. Listro has done a great job networking. His passion comes through. People are drawn to this program, and I see why. Thank you for all that you do. It was a great experience. I encourage everyone to participate next year if you're able to. Columbus, I have my notes. So we have an unending list of opportunities for improvement in this district. We have hungry and homeless children and families. We have families needing help with uniforms, transportation, and child care. We have parent engagement opportunities. We have social emotional issues. We have athletic opportunities. We have opportunities in staffing, academic improvement, and curriculum. We have opportunities with security. I'm not sure why the BOE members, who are also educators, are raising this item and not more critically important concerns. I'm concerned that we're more bound to heritage pride than historical and educational truths and facts. This argument is something I'd expect to happen 20 or 30 years ago. But with all the historical research and historical facts we now know, Columbus is not a figure to be celebrated. With all that has been revealed, why is this anything worth pursuing? It's not. There are many other ways to celebrate Italian American heritage than pursuing a myth that only causes community and human divides. American history is filled with flaws and inaccuracies. There are gaps in cultural learnings given the decades and centuries of oppressed voices. We are only now learning of tragedies, crimes, and merciless efforts to eliminate the Native American culture. Only now that information, communication, transparency, and visibility is more accessible because of technology, do we see the way we have and continue to devalue the culture, contributions, and lives of Native American people. The story of Columbus is a myth wrapped in lies and tied with a bow to ensure that Italian culture would not see the same fate as Native American and all other non-white cultures. I understand it is hard to unlearn decades of education we were taught to believe and celebrate. I understand that. It is hard. I get it. I understand that because the reactions across the state and country are inconsistent about Columbus, you might think it okay to continue to revisit this subject. It's not. We know better. This is the part where we do better, and we should lead in this. I understand Italian pride, and I understand American pride. We can both be proud Italian, Spanish, Portuguese Americans, while also accepting that American history includes and is largely built on wronging cultures who were not white, beginning with Native Americans. But the story of Columbus is horrifying. It's unsettling. It paved the path for inequity, cruelty, colonization, disease, devaluing of human life. Columbus is not a celebratory figure, and he did not found America. Native American history and culture should be learned,
Costa, if you could.
summarize.
embraced,
it.
and celebrated, and never compromised again. It's an important subject. I appreciate everybody's grace. So thank you for your time. I hope your discussion goes well. Make good choices, guys.
So the next person is Perla Cardozo.
Hello, good evening. My name is Perla Cardoso, and I'm a resident of 48 Brookline Street here in New Britain, Connecticut. So two things. One, Christopher Columbus. I'm here in support to keep it as Indigenous Day because majority of our students here in the district are people of color, right? So there's no reason why it shouldn't be that way. And yeah, so I'm here to support, right? To support it, keep Indigenous Day. Two, question. I'm looking up at the notes at the agenda for tonight. I'm wondering when will they be in Spanish? I'm seeing that, again, the majority of the people in our district are Spanish speaking, right? And it was hard for me to tell parents what's going on with, like, here in the district, because what am I gonna show them? I can't translate them the whole agenda for tonight. So I'm just wondering if it'll ever be in Spanish. Thank you.
Okay, and the next person is Sherry Benedetto. You can correct me, please.
Hi, my name is Shady Benavides, and I live at 1290 East Street. I'm a senior in New Britain High School, and I'm coming in behalf of most students of color that would agree to ask the Board of Ed continues to support history and students of color by keeping Indigenous Day. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to speak in public comment? Anybody else who would like to speak?
We have 4 calls.
We have 4 phone calls. Okay, great. I can't see.
You can't see them? We'll start with the phone number that ends in 06.
Hang on a sec. Phone number, which number?
Ending in 06.
Phone number ending in 06. You want to go first?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Good evening. This is Dr. Violet Jimenez-Sin, 77 Adams Street, New Britain. I'd like to begin tonight by acknowledging that the land on which we gather, known as New Britain, Connecticut, is the territory of the Tungus, Quinnipiac, and Wappinger peoples who stewarded this land for generations. I thank them for their strength and resilience. I also acknowledge that I stand on the shoulders of my own ancestors, including the Arawak people of Quisqueya and Borican, known as Tainos, and the Yoruba peoples of West Africa. I'm grateful for the ancestors' survival and ingenuity. As a result, their legacy lives on in much of the current New Britain population. So I'm calling you to express concern about items F and G on your new business section of the agenda. An attempt to rename Indigenous People Day. Needs to mute themselves.
Go ahead.
An attempt to rename Indigenous People Day in a city like New Britain is a step backward. The item description doesn't suggest an alternative name, but first I hope that the thought is not regressing to Columbus Day, which is something districts who are taking a restorative approach to collaborating with their communities are moving away from. And secondly, I can't imagine a name that is more inclusive as district students and families enjoy a reflective day off, and educators plan lessons and activities around a time in history that should be examined through multiple lenses. We have already taken an opportunity to shift from a view that causes many people pain to one that honors all of the diverse people who make up this great city by honoring Indigenous Peoples Day. This is what's currently on the calendar. Studies show that the majority of state and local curriculum standards end their study of American history before 1900. So among many things, celebrating Indigenous People Day brings to the forefront the survival and contemporary experience of Native peoples that has been erased for centuries. Any proposal to turn away from that progress should die on the BOE floor tonight. I don't believe it should be referred to anything or anything of the sort. The majority of people in New Britain have more connection to Indigenous history, and as well as pretty much any ethnicity does. So you all have a chance to stand on the right side of history today, and I hope you make the right choice. Thank you for your full consideration in this matter.
Next person.
Phone number ending in 22.
Phone number ending in 22.
You need to unmute.
You need to unmute yourself by hitting *6.
They were muted by Kirsten. Kristen, she may have to unmute them.
Ah, okay. You're not able to unmute them?
No, you can never unmute.
Okay.
They have to unmute.
Okay, so they need to hit *6 or call back in if they can't do that.
Nope.
There we are.
Okay.
Go
Are
ahead.
you able to hear me now?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you so much for your help. So my name is Dario Galliano. I'm a lifelong New Britain resident. I live here on Bingham Street. She's sitting at my house. I also want to discuss Columbus Day and Indigenous Peoples Day. I've been hearing a lot of misinformation on this call regarding who Columbus was, who Columbus was not. I think the first thing we should remember is the whole purpose of Columbus Day was inclusivity. The day was established in 1892 by President Benjamin Harrison as a way to unite the country after 11 Italian Americans were lynched in New Orleans after they'd been acquitted of murder that they did not commit. Rampaging rioters killed 11 people and injured many more. So President Harrison's effort was to unite the Italian American population with Americans who already considered Columbus as a hero for his noble deed, and when he came to Wisconsin and discovered it for the rest of the world. But should also be noted is that it carried even more symbolic weight during World War II because Columbus Day was the day chosen to declassify Italian Americans as enemy aliens, as most of them were during World War II. Now, a lot of people are talking about how it is important to include the indigenous people, and I completely agree. It's important to value indigenous peoples and cultures, but not at the expense of Italian Americans who have fought so hard themselves to be recognized in this country. What many people fail to know is that there's already an Indigenous Peoples Day on the calendar, federally recognized by not only the government, but 184 Native American tribes. And that is Native American Heritage Day on the day after Thanksgiving. What I propose is that Indigenous Peoples Day be moved to that date, the day after Thanksgiving. And it's a win-win for everybody. Italian Americans can feel that their culture is upheld, and Indigenous peoples can have their culture taught in the context of Native American Heritage Month, which November is. There's always a proclamation every year on Native American Heritage Day. And it would be a benefit for the school district as well, because you wouldn't have to have this exhausting debate every single year. And it would include everybody. And you would not need to spend money on additional day off because it is also already a day off on the calendar. So I applaud the Board of Education for taking this issue on and considering a reinstatement of Columbus Day. And I urge them to do so because Italian Americans matter as well. And we also want to have the indigenous people be recognized, but there is already a day that exists on the calendar for them, and we just ask that one not be abolished in favor of the other. Thank you so much for your time, and have a great night.
Thank you. And we have another.
Ending in 2-3.
Ending in 2-3.
You need to unmute.
Unmute, yeah. Unmute by hitting *6.
Hi, this is Candace Scott. I'm calling in
in regards to Indigenous Day. I'm a resident here in New Britain. I actually went to a private school in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where I was actually taught the truth, which is a lot different from most people in this country. From a very young age, I was sat down and told the very harsh truth about Columbus. And it's not a happy story to tell children, but I'm very grateful that I was actually told the truth from a young age. So I didn't have any issues with hearing about it now. And I'm surprised and alarmed that other children were not taught the truth. I do remember going to a regular school, public school, where they told a different story than what I was grown up to be told, and it was very interesting to hear that story. I'm really concerned, because I am a therapist, that the psychological damage of lying to children about the truth in our history is a concern for me. And I pray that we will be able to think about this discussion that we're having today around this and make the right decision for our youth. Because going back and forth on this is not, I don't think that that's a good thing for us adults to be doing. We know what the truth is around this topic, and we need to teach the truth to our children. It hurts, especially when the city is so diverse and there are a lot of children of color. It's very painful for those children of color and I think that we forget about the children who are not of color and the pain that some of them go through when we deal with these racial tensions. I think that a lot of times we forget that our children that are not of color are actually impacted by us doing things that might hurt people who are of color, because they're their friends, they're their loved ones. So we really just need to think about everybody, and that's why it should stay as Indigenous Peoples Day, because we're thinking about everybody in our community. This has nothing to do with taking away anything from the Italian culture at all, actually. And I have nothing but respect and love for the Italian community. I have respect and love for every single community, which is why we should keep this as Indigenous Day, because they were the people who were here first, and we need to respect that. And we're not doing that by having someone who, in history, tormented the Indigenous people. So I'm quite sure that we can find another way to celebrate Italian culture, because we should love and respect everybody.
Okay, thank you.
So that's what I wanted to say.
All right.
Thank you very much. I pray that you'll make a good decision.
All right. Do we have anyone else?
We have phone number ending in 46.
Number ending in 46.
Hello?
Yep, go ahead.
Hello there. This is Richard LaCourcier, resident at 173 South 9 Drive here in New Britain, also a paraeducator within the New Britain School District. And I suppose I'll just speak kindly and my vociferous proposal to change our Indigenous Peoples Day and explicitly to change it back to Columbus Day. And just to reiterate what has been said by so many others already in this call, Columbus was a slaver, a person who participated in genocide, and all the numerous crimes that are included under the umbrella of those acts that were perpetrated, that were done to the folks of the Americas, and to hold this person up in higher regard, especially and anywhere, but particularly in this school district, where so many of our students come from families who are from these groups of people, and that's where I find it just absolutely vile that this would be even a topic of discussion, and how we as a, and I'm sorry, I'm just trying to collect myself from this feeling, but the fact of the matter is that there's other ways to honor Italian Americans in our community And the fact of the matter is that when so often, there are many of those, I'm not saying those right here, but there are those who use the issue of Columbus Day as a way to continue the systems of white supremacy and oppression. And we cannot allow that to be granted to our community or even entertain that as a possibility. So I encourage the board to do the right thing and to not continue to honor a man who was a slaver and a genocider. And by his own words and his branding his own journals, advocated for the use of children, indigenous children, as currency to be traded. And that is where I think that is where it says the most that one could say. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Do we have any other?
There's one other caller that ends in 47 and they're muted.
Okay. Person whose phone number ends in 47, if you hit *6 to unmute yourself. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. So my name is Samantha Walker. I am a resident of New Britain, also an Indigenous person who resides in New Britain. So obviously, I'm hoping to keep it, that you guys would keep it as, Indigenous People Day. It's been Columbus Day for years, correct? I understand that there's a lot of Italian Americans in New Britain. I also understand that there is a lot of Indigenous people in New Britain. A lot of Puerto Ricans are Indigenous and they need to learn their culture. I was listening in the live and I heard that somebody was like, they compromise. And compromising is okay, fine. We try to teach our children that every day. But to compromise and to have Indigenous People Day the day after Thanksgiving, which is our day of mourning, by the way, doesn't really work out. I hope that you guys will make really good decisions and to honor our culture on a day where we don't celebrate Columbus, and to honor our culture because it's not taught in schools. Italian American culture is kind of taught in schools. Indigenous culture is not taught in schools. And I just hope that you guys would make a good decision and give us one day where we get to be recognized in schools for our culture, and not just the people who are labeled as a tribe, but for all of the Indigenous people who have even just one drop of Indigenous blood in their body. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anybody else on the phone? Do we have anybody else in the room who wants to contribute to public participation?
I'll go.
Okay, please come on up.
I wasn't going to say anything, but I heard some inaccuracies and stuff. I wanted to just, let me see how this goes. A couple words and I think I'm the only resident science person here, am I? Or maybe not. Just so that people are clear, Sal Escobar is 2399 Stanley Street, New Britain, Connecticut, Lightford. Just to reconcile a couple things, and the word reconciliation matters here because when we talk about indigenous, Caribeño, whatever kind of words that the Latin text is used to define indigenous people in the Caribbean, you have to understand, bear in mind that when we talk about Puerto Ricans and to some respect Cubans and some of the other folks in the other greater Antilles, you're talking about people walking around in this city right now with about 2 to 8% Taino genetics in them, right? So let's, kind of keep that, in frame. The other part of it that would just a little bother me just a little bit is the caller, the young lady, and she was very eloquent in what she just defined in terms of the celebration or it was a gentleman, I can't remember who it was about the celebration of an Indigenous Peoples Day as a part of the Thanksgiving celebration, right? But that's sort of a unilateral look at it because historically that context only covers the people in this country, right? So by saying that, you're kind of dismissing all of the, what you would call indigenous, historically First Nations people in the greater Antilles, which is the Caribbean. So I think we all need to maybe spend, not all, but I guess we all could spend some time at the history department at New Britain High School and sort of get a refresher course. And I think we've taken some stuff, right, and we've grabbed that, added to put, but let's look at it in true context, right? Yes, there are indigenous First Nation people in this country. Yes, absolutely true, right? And if you want to put that after Thanksgiving, which is kind of a suspect day to do it anyway historically, by that context alone, right, that's also a day of mourning for the Native Americans in this country, in a sense, right? And then you have the indigenous people of the Greater Antilles, you know, the old school term for everybody in the Caribbean there, right? If you're trying to take and wave your hand from the northern tip of South America, right, sort of right west and cover Cuba, Dominican Republic, and all those places. Because we have young people in the room here at the high school, right, who may have gotten pieces of this, right? It's our job to kind of help put it together, right? So my niece and nephew are half Italian and half Puerto Rican, one hell of a mix. I love them dearly. This is not about them. If we want to talk about indigenous Italian people, let's throw them in the mix with us too. There's Oskins and the Nakulai, right, who are the original Native American Italians, and they're welcome, right? We could all live under the same tent. Because really what we do when we honor indigenous people through this way is really reconciliation, right? And this country could use a little reconciliation right about now. So that's all I had to say. I just heard a couple things thrown out there that made me feel a certain type of way. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Going once?
I think someone else joined us.
Someone else joined us on the phone.
Yes.
Okay. Last
Ending in 2-5.
caller whose number ends in 2-5. Are they muted?
They're muted.
They are muted. So hit *6 and you'll unmute.
It's me, Perla.
Oh.
Hello? It's
Yes.
me, Perla. It is me. Sorry.
Okay.
I just connected to the phone.
All right. Thank you. Okay. Let's move on to the new business. I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session to consider some pending litigation. And we need to invite Attorney Peter Murphy, the superintendent, and Mary Ellen Manna.
I make a motion that we include, go to the executive session, including those three you just mentioned.
Second.
All right. We will be back after our executive session, and then we'll have another executive session. We are back from the last executive session, and we are going to go right back into executive session. I will accept a motion to go into executive session inviting the superintendent, Mary Ellen Manning, and Dr. Sanders.
So moved.
And also Ann Alfano.
And Ann Alfano, yes, right.
So moved.
Second.
Motion second. All right, let's go back into executive session.
Hold on.
Usually take,
I guess we do need to vote, yes.
you usually take in the candidate after we talk.
Okay.
Okay, so we will start and then we'll invite you in later. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are back at 7:18. Yes. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to, yeah.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Hold
You
on,
actually
wait a
have to
minute.
spell out what it is.
That's what I was gonna do. Give me 1 second. I'm making a motion to appoint Ann Alfano as the Director of Finance. Did I say that?
Chief Financial Officer.
Chief Financial Officer.
Yes.
Second.
He already had the second.
All right, we have a seconded motion. Anyone who would like to speak for or against?
I think it's a great choice.
Anyone else? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Looking forward to working with you, Ann.
Okay, we'll move to the superintendent's report.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. I have a different type of superintendent's report for you tonight. First, before I do the report, I'd like to recognize that today is National School Custodians Day, so I'd like to thank all of our hardworking school custodians for the work that they do to keep our schools clean and safe. For the rest of my report tonight, you have a different type of report for me. As the board has heard from me in a weekly update email, I'm going to be starting a monthly newsletter to go out to families electronically. It'll be available through email and also on our website. The goal is for the members of the superintendent's team, the senior leadership team, to talk about the things that are happening at the district level. So you have the draft of the first edition where we have articles about the highly successful back-to-school bash. I'd like to say thank you to the members of the senior leadership team, Diana Rios, my assistant, and also Powell Figot for compiling the document that you have before you. You have brief updates from a variety of departments about the good things happening across our district. An update from me, of course, about some of the things that I'm seeing from the superintendent's office, and something that is sure to change, but we will keep updating. The newsletter ends with our school calendar. That is stable for now, but as we have snow days and such, that will be updated with each edition of the newsletter. So with that, that'll make up my report for this evening.
Okay, committee reports.
Finance, we met
person?
last month. We approved a few purchase orders for the world. It was a quick meeting. Thank you to the diligence of staff too. It seemed like a little more streamlined the presentation they made to us.
Okay. And personnel?
Yes, we met and we have a few items on the agenda under new business that we'll be voting on tonight.
The curriculum met, we discussed Path to Explore for middle school. It's a virtual platform for students to explore different career pathways. So that's on the consent agenda tonight.
Okay. All right, and board reports?
I attended the Hall's PTO last month. Very interesting group. I gotta say that I was very impressed with all the programs they have going on this year. And what really impressed me was the parental support. As soon as Ms. Clerkin said that she needed something, parents one after another were just like volunteering to help out. That was there. When you hear a lot of, as a teacher, one of the biggest things I always complain about is in the urban schools, we need to get more parents involved. They had a lot of parents who were active that night.
Okay. Other board member reports?
We have, Slade had their first bingo night last week, which was lucky enough, well attended, and actually a pretty good time. And so they're a PTO that's in transition and looking for parents. So if you are a Slade parent, please consider joining. And also, Pulaski is doing some wonderful stuff over there. We had a wonderful, if you want, I call everything a coffee talk, whether we're having coffee or water, I'll be honest with you, I do. And we had our very first coffee with the principal that I thought was just amazing as far as just sitting down and having a great conversation. Some other parents joined in, and it was just cute. It was like 9:30 to 10:30, and just had a great conversation. So I have kids in both middle schools, and so it's just really great to be able to sit down and see how they were also recognizing their Hispanic staff as well. So come October 15th, we'll be closing Hispanic Heritage Month. And so a lot going on in the city. They're going to be having the Puerto Rican flag is going to be going up next week. And so let's just see kind of what happens. But we had a really good time. So thank you for that on both middle schools.
Okay.
And I just want to give a shout out to the New Britain High School, I guess 9th grade volleyball team. I think they're 6-0 so far.
I know they're big.
And I will have the privilege of participating in the garden crawl on Tuesday and seeing the great work that Roots is doing at the two middle schools were the ones that we toured. And then on Sunday, I went out and rode the Velomobile in the Southington Apple Harvest Parade. Just a couple of groups behind the New Britain High Marching Band. They were good and loud, and everybody seemed to have a great time.
She didn't bring back any bigger.
Okay, so let's move on to our
Make one board report. What I can formally say is, when you mentioned the American Bear reminded me, I live one street over from the high school. In the past years, I always hear the marching bands. I'm like, okay, they're getting better. This year, I gotta say, I'm loving the performance. They're showing that how skilled they are. I enjoy listening now, going to the patio and listening to the marching band. They're doing a great job.
Okay. So now let's move on to our student representative reports.
Last week was our first pep rally in the past couple of years. It was great. Students were able to see all of their sports teams, fall sports teams represented. The band performed their show, went well. Students participated in a grade versus grade tug of war competition, and a musical chairs that was played with students of all grades. And after speaking with Mr. Pierce, we have realized that it was a great, how do I say this, sorry. It provided great insight on safety protocol for a school-wide evacuation. It allowed teachers and staff to direct students from the high school down to the stadium where they could be evacuated for any type of reason. It also helped bus drivers and dismissal procedures to be executed safely without a real emergency present.
I also like to say that the pep rally last week, it was a great event. It also helped keep up the, I guess you could say, the New Grand High spirit, which a lot of people don't really hold as much, especially in the past few years when the COVID hit and the pandemic really was kind of nasty for some. The New Britain High spirit was really something that was diminishing over the past few years, but having this pep rally and really having one with the new students and me being a senior and actually getting a pep rally was actually an opportunity to actually see what school can be. And I think that we should have more of those school activities to bring everybody really together and keep that spirit up.
Was that your first pep rally?
We're glad you got to. All right.
If I may, I just wanted to say thank you to Mr. Pierce, to Ms. Gonzalez, to Mr. Valerio. That pep rally took a lot of effort by a lot of people to pull off and make it safe and make it productive. So thanks for reporting on it, and thanks to Mr. Pierce and a lot of other staff behind the scenes who really put in a lot of effort, not only to have it, but as was said, to move the bus pickups and make sure everybody was kept safe. So kudos to the staff who also made it a great event that the kids enjoyed.
Okay, great. Let's move on to the consent agenda. Is there anything that anyone would like to take off of the consent agenda?
Can I take off items B and C?
E and C. Okay. Anybody else? Okay, we will take up item B.
So item B is the enrollment report.
Yep.
So I'll make a motion to accept the enrollment report.
Second. Okay, we have a seconded motion. Discussion?
Yeah, sorry. So what I'm not seeing, and I don't think I've seen it for a while, is the chronic absenteeism, which is usually attached to that enrollment report. Are we not reporting on that like we used to?
And Jeff is saying, no, we haven't been doing that for a while. 2 or 3 years. Is there...
And I know we didn't do it because of COVID, but are we going to bring that back? Is that part of enrollment, or is that...
That was a whole separate report.
Specifically, attendance and enrollment would be two separate topics. If the board would like that report in the future, we could do it on a periodic basis when it makes sense to do so.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So you're saying you would hit a certain number of, I don't know, a certain percentage, and at that point it would trigger reporting back on what the absenteeism is?
Well, we could talk about it each month, but it may not. It may not make. We could perhaps report on it twice yearly or quarterly or something like that. It may be instructive to us on a monthly basis. Really, whatever the board requests, we can certainly generate that report. Chronic absenteeism is more than 10%. So chronic absenteeism, literally by definition, is a moving target. So if we've had 10 days of school, missing one would make you chronically absent. In a full school year, missing 18 days would make you chronically absent, more than
I'd
that.
like to see it quarterly.
So I'm going to leave that up to the board, and you can communicate with the board chair. It doesn't need a resolution, but, once the board has clarity on what it would like, we can certainly produce that report for your packet.
Okay, thank you. That was all for that one.
Okay, so any other discussion on item B? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, item C.
Make a motion to accept the personnel and extracurricular activities.
We have a second. Any discussion?
So I don't have anything in my side file. I don't know if it's presented down there.
So you don't have anything in your side file? Sorry, for old.
But if you guys do, I'm okay. I just will abstain because I don't.
It's page 35 for this particular report. In the side file.
Yeah, the personnel report starts on page 27, the personnel transactions and extracurriculars is on 35. You didn't have,
The only thing I have is contract.
It's right before the contracts in the side file. Immediately before the contracts in the side file, I believe.
It is. Right after your dispatch and before the contracts.
All right, so are you looking at the paper file or are you looking at what we're using
Side file.
electronically?
I thought I
The
read it.
electronic side file?
I think I read it in the electronic side file.
I printed mine from the electronic today, and that's where I found it, Gail.
Okay, I don't see it in mine. I see all the contracts.
It's one side of one sheet of paper.
Okay, no worries. I just abstain because I don't.
Okay. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? One abstention? Gail?
Yes, please.
Okay. All right, let's move on to new business.
Did you read the remainder of the consent?
The rest of the remainder of the consent agenda is approved.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so new business, personnel.
We just,
Moving contract.
okay, discuss pending litigation, Steele versus Board of Education.
No.
No, I mean.
You're in the wrong place. Number five.
Okay.
Number
wait a minute.
5.
All right, I got the right one now. Okay, approve employment contract by and between Board of Ed of the City of New Britain and Chief Finance Officer.
So, as Ms. Parker mentioned earlier, the Personnel Committee discussed a variety of these contracts at their committee meeting, and Ms. Parker, as the chair of the committee, is bringing these forward to you for your consideration after the committee's discussion.
Okay. And
I'll second.
So we have a seconded motion on item 5A, which is the contract between the Board of Ed and the new Chief Financial Officer, Ann Alfano. Okay, so we have a seconded motion. Any discussion on this item? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Item B, personnel, approve employment contract by and between Board of Ed, City of New Britain, and Chief of Staff Relations and Accountability.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion on this item? Okay, seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Item C, approve employment contract by and between Board of Ed of the City of New Britain and Academics and Accountability Officer pre-K through 5.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion on this item? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Item D, approve employment contract by and between Board of Ed of the City of New Britain and Director of Talent and Equity.
Second.
Okay, any discussion on this item? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Item E, approve employment contract by and between Board of Ed of the City of New Britain and Chief Operations Officer.
Second.
Okay, have a seconded motion. Any questions? Discussion? Seeing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Okay, item 5F.
I just want to make a quick comment as.
You have to motion.
All right, I'd like to make a motion that we table it until we can give a chance maybe for the DEI Council to chance review a potential compromise solution.
Second.
So is your motion to refer to the superintendent's DEI council?
For discussion and make a compromise recommendation.
So if I may, the council as I envision it isn't even formed yet. Dr. Sanders and I are working closely on that. The purpose of the Superintendent's DEI Advisory Council will be to help me when I bring things to you, when I bring a new curriculum to you or a policy to you, is to help me make sure that we haven't accidentally forgotten about a perspective or been accidentally biased in a way. I would be happy to take ideas from this board to that council, but that council, as I envision it, wouldn't be one making proposals. So if there's a proposal or an idea that you would like to get to me either tonight or at a later date, I'd be happy to work with Dr. Sanders and take those ideas there. Just to be clear, it wouldn't be a subcommittee of the board. This is a group of community members that I intend to help me make better decisions.
Dr. Casper, will that advisory council have like ongoing training?
So we haven't even formed it yet. So once we know
Your vision.
once we know who is there and what their makeup is, so my goal is to really find a wide variety of adults and perhaps even a student or two from the community that represent the wide diversity that we have in town. So it will not be per se educators who I think would need such training. It's really about taking them from their neighborhoods and the communities that they represent, bringing together people who perhaps don't typically sit at a table together and showing them, hey, here's our new third grade literacy curriculum. What do you think about that? Or the superintendent's bringing a policy before the board. Could you please take a look at this first, just to make sure we weren't accidentally biased in some way? So with all due respect, I'm happy to bring a proposal that the board or a board member would have before the council when it's formed, but it's not the type of body that I would envision making proposals.
And I'm going to amend my motion to table it until our December meeting, because I also like a chance to speak to some of the community members that we heard tonight. I mean, I heard a great compromise tonight on the phone that I'd like to look more further into. So, and as a historian too, I got information I can share on it. So I'd be willing to table it until December.
So can,
Yeah.
okay.
Go ahead, Gail.
So can we change that motion and Tony and Tony, can we formulate our own committee and you guys can review it with board members, members of the community, and come up with a proposal? So like the research is done somewhat in public?
Sure. I'd be willing to have a committee of myself, the other Tony, and maybe another historian, and maybe a couple community members, if somebody could assemble that group.
Yeah, because I could totally do that.
I'd like to have somebody with background in history.
Right. Right. Because I think you want to make it, you want to make the research public, and maybe when you guys come up with your plan, it's presented in public.
I would love to see Mr. Escobalis, if he's amenable to be part of that. And I did want to just point out that the person mentioned the day after Thanksgiving as a different solution, but that's a day of mourning and not celebration.
Again, the historian, I know that fact too. I like the idea though of another day, retaining October 12th as a school day with the name Columbus Day that we don't take off. Then maybe another day like a multicultural day or some kind of, another name for it that includes all cultures.
That's a great conversation, I think, to have in a committee, but.
Yeah, we have a motion to table this. And the question then is, are we referring it to an existing committee, a new committee, or, I think the last time this went through policy, because it actually fits in our policies around.
You know what, so that's a good point, Meryl. Maybe it's a special policy meeting and we invite those historians, et cetera, to come to that meeting. Instead of trying to form another committee.
I would like to say that we passed this a couple of years ago and there was no outrage from the community about it. I feel that we have so many things. We've had a lot of special meetings. We have a lot going on. And I don't see that this is something that the community is upset about and that we need to form a whole nother committee and a whole bunch of meetings and doing surveys, and because we know how that goes. We've done that. So my recommendation is to leave it. We had people come in tonight who had something to say, and they said it. You don't see anyone out there knocking down the doors about this. So I feel like we should leave it. There's enough controversies and hard feelings in the community about a lot of other things that are going on, and this is not at the top of the list.
We've made a lot of progress in the district in terms of our DEI initiatives in the last few years, and I hate to see it regressing.
Tony?
Well, to be fair, when that change was made 2 years ago, it was during a remote meeting in the middle of the pandemic. We had no public participation, and we had very spotty, awful Wi-Fi connection during those meetings where we had a hard time discussing and understanding each other and each other's points. I think there's a lot of mis and disinformation out there, as we can tell just from the comments tonight about what is truth, what some people perceive to be truth versus what others perceive to be truth. And I think that's where the historical aspect comes in that Mr. Kane was talking about, actually looking at what are the facts, because when we take one thing and we say, well, this is how it was, and someone else says, well, this is how it was, and then as a result we just end up canceling it entirely. That's something that can happen to anyone at any time, at any point in history. So the reason that I brought this forward was to have more of a discussion, not to create a controversy, because I don't think we did it justice the first time. And it was not a policy change, it was a calendar change. We're not adverse to bringing it through policy, but it was simply a calendar change at that point. It didn't even go through policy at that point.
And one thing that came up quite a bit was we are a multicultural city, and why do we need one holiday just for one particular reason? You're defending somebody, so come up with a compromise that every different culture we have in the city is recognized in some fashion in one day, instead of having a Hispanic holiday, a Muslim holiday, Italian holiday, a Polish holiday. By the time if we did a holiday for every single culture group, we won't have any time for instruction. So let's go to look it over and decide on a way that can make all cultures recognized.
And I just want to see if we're going to look at this, the discussion was during Zoom and the pandemic, so then we can use that reasoning for everything, all the different things that we changed during that time and voted on. So I don't think that's a good reason. And the indigenous people, there is no holiday for them. So we do have them for a lot of other groups, so. And they cover a large group, because how many people you hear say, I have some Indian blood? I mean, everyone has it when it comes to that. So we will be celebrating everybody. All those people who claim to have the 1%, 2%, 3%, you're recognized.
Okay, so we have a motion to table this item. And the motion to table, a vote yes on a table is taking it off the table. A vote no is keeping it as a discussion item that could then be voted on up or down afterwards.
Okay, say that again.
Vote yes, it gets tabled to a future meeting. Vote no, it doesn't get tabled, we have to vote on it tonight.
Right.
But the motion was to table and refer, but it doesn't sound like we can refer. So I think you have to withdraw your motion and.
No, but he amended his motion. He amended his motion.
We didn't vote on, you have to vote on the amended.
I withdraw my motion, I make my motion to refer to the policy committee.
Okay, so we have a motion to refer this item to the policy committee.
Second.
There's a second. Is there discussion on this? Okay, so all in favor of referring it to the policy committee, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed to referring it to the policy committee, say aye. Or say no. Say no.
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 Mayor, can I get a show of hands?
Okay, let's do
perhaps a roll call vote.
A roll call
Yeah,
vote, let's do a
roll
roll call vote, yes, that's.
Mr. King with a C.
Yes.
Ms. Dawkins.
No.
Mr. King with a K.
Yes.
Ms. Parker.
No.
Ms. Reyes.
No.
Ms. Santana.
Yes.
Mr. Lisbro.
No.
Mr. Gay.
No.
Ms. Sanders Connolly.
No.
Motion fails. Okay. Possible action on update to a district calendar. Someone want to make a motion on that? Someone want to withdraw that? What do we want to do?
Withdraw.
All right, motion to withdraw the 5G.
Okay. And let's move on to operations.
Do we have to vote?
I withdrew.
So you withdrew the motion.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Finance and operations, somebody want to make a motion about revising the educational specifications for homes?
So what you have before you that was discussed with the facilities committee, members of the board, is in reviewing the homes educational specifications 2 weeks ago, there's an opportunity to add a structure of a family resource center, much like the ones that one that you see at the high school. And talking with our architects, it looks as though this could be reimbursable space. The project is already over its allotment on reimbursable space, but we will be applying for a waiver to that. So at this point, they're just ed specs. They're not actually education or not actually architectural drawings, but it is part of the process of applying for grants for the Holmes project. So in order to be equitable with other schools that have been renovated, and also rather than having the family and school liaison kind of inside of the school where it's not as accessible, especially after hours, this, we believe, gives the chance to construct a family resource center attached to this school health clinic that could be available after hours by having its own entrance. So the everything else about the ed specs, as we call them, has already been approved by the board, but because that's a board-approved document, I'm recommending to you this amendment tonight.
Okay. Motion, do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a second, Mr. Lister. Discussion on this item. Anybody have?
Yeah, so I have a question. The word that stuck out to me was might be. Do we have to go through city council to get an approval to actually hire the amount we were gonna bond?
No, the might be part is about what the state OSCGR, who, when they review our grant application, we are already over on square footage for what they would allow. But the plan, and that was before this addition of this extra 1,000 square foot. So the plan was basically to add this add this space to our request for a square footage waiver. So I don't want to overpromise. Okay. So it's not in the end our decision, but it's part of an already existing plan to ask for a space waiver.
And if we don't get that space waiver, then we have to decide whether or not we're going.
Correct. Then we would basically come back to the ed specs, and we might need to give the board a chance to rethink that, not just for this addition, but there was a substantial overage. I believe at one point we were 40% over the allowable space. So the school, our staff have been working to kind of bring that down. The meeting we had, the principal and assistant principal from Holmes were present to help guide those conversations. Something that was noticed during that conversation was there was an FSL office like way inside the school, which is where some of our schools do have it, but as long as we're renovating the school, it would be a nice service to the community to have a family resource center with its own entrance and exit that could be used after hours regardless of whether the full school is open.
Okay.
So forgive me, aren't they're health-based clinics, right?
So the health clinic is separate from the FRC, but our architects advised us that this would qualify under the same reimbursement. It's kind of integrated into the same area of the school, and that's why they think it would also qualify for the waiver.
Okay.
And which schools have the FRC? Is it Smalley, Chamberlain will have one?
Yes, and yes.
Smith? Okay.
So eventually,
My only-
family school liaison, coming in and out, right there, they're gonna be along with the staff that's already in there. Beautiful, that's where it should be, okay. When they started the program years ago, they had just kind of had them in an office right by the entrance. And they used to be part of like that welcome to school everyday committee,
Yeah.
you know, stand out there, welcome to school, you know. I got you.
So while we're renovating, it's an opportunity.
Absolutely.
Okay. Other discussion on this item?
My only concern is the ed specs won't come back to us, right? With the charter change, can we amend ed specs if we get denied the extra space?
If the Board of Education retains authority over the educational specifications, yes.
Yeah.
Right.
If they need substantial changes from what you're potentially approving tonight, yes, we would need to come back to you for another amendment.
But we would still have to get it kicked back first, so we're taking the first step in being able to say, put it in there.
Correct.
And then we come back. Yeah,
Correct.
So that's fine.
Okay. Any further discussion on this? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Any abstentions? Motion carries. Okay, finance,
I'm requesting the board approve this contract. This is basically for substitute services in our finance department. We have some members of the department who have been out on medical leaves, in one case for much longer than anticipated. So thank you for appointing a new CFO tonight. This is a request by me to get some temporary support in that office so we can continue having it operate well, and Ms. Alfano's car doesn't need to be in the parking lot until 9:30 at night too often. I do want to thank the board president for approving me to bring this forward to you without the traditional trip through subcommittee. It's a little bit of a surprise that some of these medical absences are going on longer than anticipated. So time is of the essence. We'd like to get some support into that department quickly. So that's what this contract is for.
I have a question on it. Motion to accept it.
Yeah. Motion to accept. Is there a second? Okay, and second. Go ahead.
It says in here it's going to cost not to exceed $25,000, and then it says local funds. Our budget's kind of tight. Where's the $25,000 going to come from?
Local funds. So with different people being out, there is some cost savings there. Ann, anything further on the source of the funds in the local budget?
So we do currently have some funds available in technical services. So there are some funds available in that account right now. So we would be able to apply those funds for this purpose.
Thank you.
So what we're trying to do with that, expedite the relief, basically.
Basically get some subs into the finance department more quickly.
How many people are out?
Well, we have a CFO who's out on medical
I know that one, yeah.
and two others within the department. And it's not a big department.
I know.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Partnerships.
So this proposal for your consideration is about getting some high school kids into class and out of study hall. So we're requesting that you approve these teaching of additional courses for that reason. Because it's personal finance, it is allowable and applicable to be paid for by the Perkins Grant, which has available funds for that purpose.
Okay.
Oh, motion.
Second.
Okay. So this is adding one section, or?
I believe it's 4 or 5 sections. You have each, there's a sequence of teachers listed in your packet. I believe that there were 4 of them, or 5, if I recall correctly. Ms. Sanford, was it 4 or 5?
It's 3.
I apologize, there are 3.
Okay.
And we already have students students signed up for these classes?
But they're in study halls.
They're stuck in study hall.
They're currently in study halls.
I understand that, but it doesn't mean they're gonna be forced to take a class.
Yes, it is.
I'm sure they're going to meet their guidance counselor and be encouraged.
Like my question was, do we have students signed up for these classes? Or
We have the interest among students.
Yes,
we do.
What grade level are they covering for that?
Students of any grade level can take personal finance.
Yes, and there's, at the current moment, there's a lot of freshmen that need 25 credits to graduate that are sitting.
That's my granddaughter.
I'm sorry?
My granddaughter is stuck in those study halls, yeah.
Yeah.
I have a niece.
Sitting in a
So
study.
she's definitely going to
Okay,
get a
that's what I'm saying, I've got
class.
3 off the top of my head.
So how are we contacting the students to the parents? To say, hey, we want to take your kid out of the study hall and put him in a class?
So the school counselors will be doing that work.
Yeah. They do the normal. You remember how when you were in school, you go see your guidance counselor and they tell you what's available? Yeah, same way.
Okay.
I like to say, you go through the internet, you hear a lot of people say, we should be offering courses like this, where there's a need for this, kids need to have this stuff, kids need to learn these skills. We offer this program in my school, and it's extremely popular, and it's also useful.
Right.
Because you hear some of the things that kids say, "Oh, I didn't know about taxes." Well, what do you mean I gotta fill out a form every year to the government? What do you mean I gotta? Yeah, they don't know that stuff, and it's all covered in these courses. So I think it's a great idea.
I'm just curious what our student representatives think. What do you think about personal finance?
Well, no, Olivia, she's probably teaching.
So I'm taking personal finance currently right now, and to say from my experience, currently taking it, it is an eye-opener for some, because there are some things, people do graduate from high school without knowing how to write a check, and they're going into the open world without knowing how to do taxes, and really after you graduate, nobody's really going to sit down and teach you how to write a check, other than you got to go to somebody close to you, or you got to pay somebody. And it's the open world, and really having the opportunity now in Brent Heights, it's a life changer. Yeah.
I took a finance course last year. I took Principles of Finance, or Personal Finance. It was a semester course, it was just half the year. And from what I know, it is a required class already. And it does teach you things like how to write a check. There was an introduction to taxes, but it wasn't, that in depth, so we only had a couple of months. But it does teach you the basics of what you need to learn, and there are other finance courses already offered at the high school.
Okay.
That's awesome.
I'd love to see it open up some adults.
All right, any further discussion on this item? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right. Let's move on to item K.
Thank you. I'm going to call either Ms. Gonzalez or Mr. Smedley to the podium to help with the details of this, because it is a little bit of a
Can you make a
complicated.
motion?
Motion to approve.
I make move.
Yeah, move to approve item K.
Second.
Okay.
So this is a little bit of a complicated explanation for the board. What we basically have is an incomplete facilities project at North End School that was begun and then put on hold years ago, I believe, Mr. Smedley, if I remember the story correctly.
That's correct. The project was originally bid out in 2019-20 under the low performing school grant.
We've had the resources, the materials, the machinery in our possession for some time. But we have an opportunity now with the remains of the ESSER grant to actually complete this project at North End School, which has to do with not letting the gym floor there get ruined again.
That is absolutely
so
correct.
With that, Mr. Smedley, please, the details for the board.
Sure. As I mentioned, the project was originally designed and planned out under the low performing school grant. Everything was purchased appropriately, approved by the board on April 16th, 2020. And as the crane was lifting the air conditioning rooftop unit up onto the roof of North End, the engineers on site realized that the way they installed what's called the curbing or the brackets to hold the unit was incorrect, and the roof would not support the weight of the unit. So they stopped the project. The unit was put in storage, and through 2 administrations, no one took action on it. So we would like to complete that project to ensure we can keep the warranty on our new gym floor at North End. So for the change order amount of $61,000, we'll have a turnkey project, everything including permits and the crane again to get the roof top unit back on North End appropriately.
The crane's got to come back.
What's the time frame for the project itself?
The contractor's been in communication with me, and they'd like to start immediately before the cold season really comes. So we anticipate to get the rooftop back up there over the next month or 2.
And would that interrupt school operations at all?
Absolutely not.
How about neighborhood operations?
The crane will operate on second shift in the parking lot or very early in the morning. Before
Is that for the whole school to be air conditioned? Or
I apologize, I didn't hear you, Ms. Parker.
Is that the whole school is going to be air conditioned, or is that just certain areas?
Just certain areas. The first floor of North End is already all air conditioned, including the cafeteria and the office spaces. The second floor classrooms are not. There's spot coolers up there, but this will air condition the gym and 2 auxiliary rooms to the gymnasium.
That's our oldest building we have for schools. How will the age building impact the project?
In 1994 or 5, there was an addition to the building, and this rooftop is going on the new addition of the building, not the existing original building. So the roof structure will be reinforced appropriately based on what was found the first time they tried to put the rooftop on.
Okay.
Let's go with it.
Thank you.
Any further discussion on this item? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. All right, anybody have any other businesses permitted by law?
No, I motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.